What is up, my fellow Shield Brothers? It's the Shield Brother here, in the flesh. It's been a long time since I've seen you, or rather that you've actually seen me, but it's great to have a webcam again. I'm really excited to be back in this, full pledge, and today is another episode of What If Mondays, and today we're going to be talking about what if the US stayed out of World War I, and what that could mean for Europe and all of its future endeavors. So, let's get started on this adventure for today. So, the setup. When World War I broke out in 1914, the United States practiced a kind of biased neutrality that turned in favor of the Allies. President Woodrow Wilson openly said that he wished to adhere to the true spirit of neutrality, which is the spirit of impartiality and fairness and friendliness to all concerned. End quote. He routinely attempted to mediate peace between the Entente and Central Powers, but his administration also authorized secured loans to the United Kingdom and the rest of the Allies. So, due to this, we were very out of the war, but we were also very in the war, due to the fact that we were behind the back dealing with the United Kingdom and the Allies in general, giving them lots of support in any way we could, because the administration at the time really wanted us to help our allies win this long endeavor. And this led to a spark of anger with some of the Entente. In 1917, Germany brought the United States into the war with two significant moves, as I've talked about in my earlier videos. The resumption of unrestricted submarine warfare and the creation of the Zimmermann telegram, which I did cover in the video earlier this year. And, as they say, the rest is history, because after those two were discovered and attempted, the United States went full-pledged into this war, throwing everything that they had into the endeavor and into the effort to win this war. So, because of this, the entire backing of a newly bludgeoning and building military power was able to enter the war. But, what if that didn't happen? So either there was no unrestricted submarine warfare, which would help a lot due to us being less angered and less unable to trade, etc. Or B, if the Zimmermann telegram had not been used or discovered. If that had happened, we might end up with a map of Europe looking something like this that we have on our screen here. See, if we were not to enter, the Entente would have definitely lost to the Central Powers. The Central Powers were already on one, and they could have won in 1917. So, if the United States had not entered in the epitome, the unique spot that they entered, which was kind of the hammer that hit the nail on the head. It was the final straw, we came in, gangbusters, and, put all of our effort, all of our factories, etc., and all these manpower into the war against the Central Powers. But if that had not happened, with France on the ropes and lots of French deserters going on, and untrust and unhappiness in the populace across Europe, this could have caused a very quick demise of the Entente. So, that could lead to a very different Europe leading up to the 30s and 40s, and even the future of how the map would be laid out and what the military strength would look like. Because if the United States had entered World War I, never entered at all, the Central Powers would have won hands down. In our timeline, the US declaration of war brought two key benefits to the Entente, even though President Wilson never formally joined up with the Entente. The first was the obvious addition of millions of men to the fronts, but the authorization of unsecured loans was just as important, because the United Kingdom was falling apart. Why was this so important? The Entente was effectively broke. They were out of money. So the secured loans were designed to prevent an economic crisis in the event of a German victory, which was on the horizon at the time. However, the British ran out of North American collateral in 1917. If the US had not entered the war, the resulting credit crunch would have destroyed the Entente's ability to wage a war. US banks would have taken a major hit due to this. but it would have been nothing compared to what very well could have happened in the negotiating table after the war. The United Kingdom could have easily gotten away with a white peace kind of thing with Germany, but France would essentially have gotten, they would have gotten the short end of the stick. They would have gotten, pardon the language, they would have gotten their asses handed to them in a alternate version of the Treaty of Versailles. Think of what France wanted done to Germany and all the reparations and all the unfair treatment to them due to the Great War. Think of that, but maybe twofold done to the French in revenge for the German peoples. So due to this, the aftermath would have been horrendous for the financial and border stances of the Europe at this time. So with the United States never entering, we see a completely different dynamic of Europe at this time. With the German Empire and even probably the Austrian-Hungarian Empire surviving. Possibly even like my last What If Monday video with the United States of them forming their states, etc., like in that video I covered. So you can see how without our help, without the United States help coming in to help the Entente, the Central Powers would have easily, well, maybe not easily, but they have quite probably won this war and turned it in their favor. They could have had such dire reparations demanded upon the French in the Treaty of Versailles that they would never be the same, and the groundwork of Europe would never be the same either. So due to this, due to the lack of us interfering, there could have been, there's multiple ways this could have gone. However, I believe the United Kingdom could have gotten almost scotch-free due to this because they were kind of just backing their allies. But there were so many webs and weavings of alliances that caused World War I in the first place that there's so many dire consequences that would have happened should the US not have interfered to help the Entente. So with this, it leads, like I said, to many future problems, and the French were already suffering from desertions and civil unrest. So they would have had essentially almost another French Revolution at the end of this, as well as many reparations put upon them and their allies, leading up to the Kaiserreich. If you do not know what the Kaiserreich is, the Kaiserreich is the victory of the German Empire after World War I, setting up the ideal map of Europe in the 30s. Like I showed earlier, that's what that map of Europe was. It was the Kaiserreich. And if the Kaiserreich had come to be, it would have been a completely dynamic with, you know, the military strength, instead of relying in the UK, being centered in the German Empire. And that's not to say that the Great Depression would not still hit, because there would still be, you know, dire consequences done to the factories and the social and the economic processes of the European powers. But that is to say that it could have come out differently, and maybe at a lesser extent than it was if the reparations on France and Germany were not the same, if they were different, etc. But still, there was a completely different outcome to this with the Kaiserreich. And if the US had not interfered, and if the war had ended quite sooner, and if the Bolshevik threat had been taken seriously, we could see that the Russian monarchy would still remain in power. But that's a completely different video for another time. However, you can see how if the US had not interfered in the favor of the Entente, how there would be a completely different world that we are living in now. Many people kind of overlook the First World War, the Great War, whatever you want to call it. It's often overlooked due to its only 4-year span. And due to this, there's a lot of details that people do not seem to realize could have changed the entire world and its dynamics forever. So you can see how just the US either interfering less or not at all would have completely changed what the world is like. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been the Shield Brother back again with his webcam for the History or Motto with this What If Monday. If you like this content, go ahead and leave me a like. If you don't, you can leave me a dislike. If you have a comment, suggestion, or concern, you can leave that in the comment section down for me below. And as always, I'll catch y'all next time.